All right, everybody. Hello. Thank you for joining us today for a very special webinar we got going on. So we're going to be talking about improving our material realism with Adobe Substance 3D and Enscape. So kind of the agenda for today, what we're going to do, we're going to do some introductions, and we're going to talk about what physically based rendering is, PBR, and we're going to talk about what these different material maps are and how they can be really beneficial for us in helping improve our renderings here. Then we're going to get into an introduction into Adobe's ecosystem, and today we're going to be focusing on a product called Adobe Sampler or Substance Sampler. And then we're also going to talk about what is Substance Sampler, how to create some different materials, and how to export those out of Sampler and get those into Enscape, and again, bringing these materials into Enscape. So about me, I'm Josh Radel. I'm one of the application engineers here based out of Minnesota. Been in the industry for about 8-9 years now. Been with Enscape for close to 2 years now. So I'm one of the AEs here, so I do a lot of trainings, webinars, consulting, support, and just kind of whatever is needed of me here. We have Aditi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aditi. I am a 3D specialist and demo artist at Adobe. I've been working in the visual effects and animation industry for about 15 years and just joined Adobe the last 6 months. But I know a lot about 3D. I've been using the Substance tools for a really long time, and I'm here to show you some things about Adobe.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for being here too. We really look forward to this.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
All right, so let's jump right in. All right, so what is physically based rendering? So, well, it's not professional bull riding. When we hear physically based rendering in PBR, it's not PBR, professional bull riding. It's not Pabst Blue Ribbon. So, physically based rendering is a way of creating materials that will accurately respond to light, just as if they were in the real world. And it's a theory based on measured surface values. So what are the benefits of physical-based rendering? So physical-based rendering removes the guesswork of wondering what these materials are going to look like in certain lighting conditions, because traditionally we used to have to create materials for different lighting scenarios, and then with the rise of real-time rendering, we can change the time of day interactively, and we can see what our space is going to look like at all different times of day. So being able to build materials that accurately respond to light, we don't have to sit there and create different materials for different lighting conditions anymore. This is going to be really beneficial for us. And it's going to help develop a texturing standard for your company, knowing that all the materials that you create have these certain different material maps that will make up a PBR material. And so we're going to cover some of the basic theories about physically based rendering and kind of like the science behind it. We'll keep it pretty basic because it gets very, very into the weeds here and very in depth. So for more in-depth knowledge about what all this stuff means and how lighting and all this works, there's a great PBR guide created by Wes that is going to be linked that you guys can get to and download. Check it out. I highly recommend it. It's a very, very great read. All right. So real quick, so some physics behind PBR. So to understand and get a good idea of how these materials are really going to help improve our renderings, we got to first understand a couple different things. So one is, how does light work? So usually when a light wave encounters an object, it's either transmitted, reflected, absorbed, refracted, polarized, diffracted, or scattered. It depends on the composition of the object and the wavelength as well. So we can see exactly by this example of what that's doing. And then how do reflections work? It occurs when an incident light, incoming light, hits an object and bounces off very smooth surfaces, such as mirrors. They almost reflect all incoming light. Mostly every material around us has some sort or some form of surface roughness that will be reflected. And we can see here for blurry refractions, it's got a very jagged surface. And then energy conservation. It's when a light ray meets a surface, some of the light ray is absorbed by the object. The light intensity will decrease as it's changing into one form or energy, usually heat, and the rest of the light will be reflected off the object. So again, this is all stuff that's going to help us understand how these materials are working and why we want to use them. And then how does refraction work? I'm sure we've all seen it. When we're staring at a glass with a straw in there, we can see it's bent a little bit. Well, that's the light waves changing directions as they pass from one medium to another. This is called the index of refraction. It's used to determine how much light will be bent when it's traveling, again, from one medium to another. And then the last one is called Fresnel. Fresnel is everywhere. This is the most common place we see it is when we're looking at water. When we're standing in a pool or a lake, when we're looking straight down, we can see to the bottom of it. And then when we look at an angle, like out in the distance, we can't really see anymore. That's the Fresnel effect. Everything around us has Fresnel. And we can create these materials in a way to where the light will respond just like this. So really help add more realism to it. Some common different material types that we can use for a PBR system here is we have albedo and then diffuse. So traditional rendering engines or a lot of other rendering engines, they have a diffuse map. And then a PBR system that's called albedo map. It's basically the same thing. It's used to determine the color of the image. The only difference is the albedo map has the shadows removed from that map. Because think about it this way, if we're trying to do a rendering and we take a picture of, say, of like a brick pattern, and the brick pattern already has like some shadows baked into it. Well, when we're trying out different lighting scenarios on our renderings, those shadows are already baked into that material map. There's really no way to get those material maps or to get those shadows out. So when we're changing the time of day, those shadows are going to look inconsistent. So the albedo map has those shadows completely removed from it. So using a combination of these different material maps we're going to talk about is really going to help add more realism to the materials and to the renderings. The next material map we have is what we call a roughness map. This is really where it's going to control the surface imperfections of the material, and it's going to control how blurry or sharp the reflections are. Other rendering engines will call it a gloss map. It's basically the same thing, except it's just an inverted map. So a roughness map, wherever's black is shiny and wherever's white is dull. And we're going to show these as well too, so we can see what the differences are. And then the next maps that we have are called a bump, normal, and displacement map. So everybody's heard of a bump map. Black is recessed and white is raised up. Displacement map is basically the same thing, except it's more of an advanced version, where it's actually going to give it the illusion that it's actual being 3D geometry displaced. So again, we're going to look at the difference between those. And then there's this other one. It's called the normal map. So it looks really weird with all these purple, green, and orange, blue different colors in there. And why this map is important is, so with a bump map, when you're looking straight on it, it looks pretty good. But when you go at an angle, it loses that 3D look to it. So whereas a normal map, the reason why it's all these different shades of purple, green, and red is because in 3D space, you have red, green, and blue for the X, Y, and Z axis. So when you go to different angles in your view, it's going to maintain that little bit of depth to that look. So normal maps are great for, smaller surface imperfections, some bumps and dents, but when we want to actually give some actual illusion, it's for like for some tile or some like stone walls or something like that, that's where we can use the displacement map to really like give the illusion that's actual that 3D geometry there. So we're going to look at those later. All right, now let's dive into what is Adobe Substance 3D.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for all of that. That was a lot of good information about what photorealistic shading is. And now let's talk about Adobe Substance 3D and how it can help you. So again, my name is Aditi Kapoor. I'm a demo artist for Adobe. And this webinar is brought to you by our Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships group at Adobe 3D and Immersive. So what is 3D texturing? Just like Josh talked about what shading is and how it captures the information from light and calculates what a 3D model will look like in your software, texturing is basically applying those texture maps and that data to things like to 3D objects like plain boxes. So this slide kind of shows you there is a plain box and you can apply a shader that will do all of that information and even create windows, facades, and full details just from texture maps. Everything in this slide is an Adobe Substance material. It kind of shows you how realistic our materials can get, and they're designed for multiple purposes, many projects. You can do most scenes in complete 3D in a very photorealistic way. So what is Adobe Substance 3D? Adobe, if you may not know this, you probably know about Photoshop and Illustrator and Lightroom and some of Adobe's 2D apps, but you may not know that Adobe also has a full suite of 3D apps available as well, and they offer everything from modeling to most of them are for texture creation, very photorealistic texture creation, and then we also have a full library and a renderer as well, and we can also output into AR using Adobe Aero, which is our AR app. So what is the suite? So the 3 points I want you to take away are that our Substance 3D apps are the industry standard for 3D materials authoring and texturing. We're widely used by everyone it was originally designed for the game industry, and is heavily used in VFX and entertainment to make photorealistic shaders and materials. And now, we are taking over the fashion industry. There's all sorts of industries who are using our libraries and our materials to help support their work, and we are compatible with all softwares. So you can not only render in Enscape, you can also use our materials for other 3D softwares as well, therefore maintaining the same look for your scene across multiple different applications. Substance 3D materials are parametric and photorealistic. Photorealistic you can see. Parametric means that they are adjustable through parameters, and I will show that in a minute. The Substance file format is also a shareable container. So if you export our parametric and procedural materials, it's supported across a large ecosystem, and the parameters are dialable from within those ecosystems as well. So we are a tool meant to be used with multiple different tools, and basically allow you to have limitless possibilities. So parametric, what does it mean? So something like a wood material. This particular wood material has many different looks and parameters that are dialable to create different looks. And you can kind of see this in this video. You can create everything from worn wood to regular wood floor. Here's kind of a look at Sampler's UI. Substance Sampler is allowing you to change different parameters, change different patterns, different kinds of brick colors. You have full control and multiple different options to get the look that you're going for, because the idea is we want to make this easier on the artist to do their art, versus spending a lot of time figuring out how to get multiple different looks from this. But it's very powerful, very controllable, and very dialable as well. And the point of this slide is to kind of show you, hey, you may have one scene, but because it's in 3D, you can now apply different parameters, different colors, and get different looks all within an image. And you may know this about 3D already. It's just so easy to quickly iterate on a scene and show clients this way. Okay, let's talk about some of our apps. So I'm going to go through our app suite really fast and just kind of give you an idea of what everything is and what we have available. As I was speaking about before, Modeler is our 3D substance modeling application. It is designed to be a clay-like experience, so you don't see the wireframe as you're modeling. You are meant to create it in 3D space, and you can use it either in VR or in desktop. And it's very simplified in terms of controls, made to be very user-friendly. We also have Adobe Substance 3D Designer. It's our most powerful app, which allows you to create these fully procedural parametric materials and models from scratch. It's kind of like creating the source code of some of these very complicated materials and then baking them down and using them in multiple different applications so that you can dial everything from resolution, which is really important, especially if you're using across different applications, but also what parameters you can control with these materials and even models. Adobe Substance 3D Sampler. So I'm going to show you this today. Basically, Sampler makes it really easy to make a material and a library of materials for your projects very fast. It allows you to take a photograph of any sort, either from your iPhone, from Adobe Stock, from any image off the web, and quickly create a 3D material that is tileable and usable in your projects right away. Adobe Substance 3D Painter is our painting application, very similar to Photoshop. It allows you to layer together multiple materials, use masks, and powerful procedural tools to quickly create very photorealistic models. Also very easy to use, very intuitive, and very powerful as well. And finally, we have Adobe Substance 3D Stager. Stager is our renderer. You can basically send any of our materials, lights, models into this application, and all of our applications support all models in terms of 3D. We also can create physical lights in here. We can also match lighting from images. It's a very powerful renderer that allows you to take your images, render them out into Photoshop in a layered way, and then continue processing. So you can quickly transfer your materials into this app. But, if you don't use this app, it's not a big deal because you can also use your materials in other apps as well, such as Enscape. Adobe Substance 3D assets. So this is another thing that's included with our subscription, and it's very powerful. Now, not everybody has a lot of time to make photorealistic materials. We understand that. Our assets library contains thousands of models and materials and lights to be used right away in your projects and already licensed to you if you have a subscription. So we'll show you some of that and how to use that in your projects today with Enscape. So here's a little bit more. I just wanted to show some eye candy before we start actually doing the demo. So here's some of our Substance 3D assets library. We have divided everything up by material categories. You can do interiors, you can do exteriors. They're very naturally, everything is very searchable. We have terrazzos, marble, granite, carpets, wallpapers, different kinds of walls, brick, pavement, concretes, everything that you can think of, it's built in. And we have it available in our assets library to download and utilize right away. We have a full marble collection, and these are images of actual 3D renders of our marble collection, and used in a scene. We have a wood collection as well, different types of woods. They're parametric in nature, which means they're very dialable in terms of your creativity. So you could be working on a project and then quickly be able to dial in what kind of wood you're using, what kind of pattern you're using, what kind of wear is available to you as well. So like how, you can quickly get a project looking good, show your clients, and be able to get feedback right away. We also have wood in terms of trees. If you're doing landscaping, it's very useful to have a library of realistic looking barks available to you. And then we also have our interior design collection with multiple grains and finishes of leathers, different types of perforations, different types of stitching patterns. And a lot of these are very dialable as well. You can change patterns, add custom patterns, paint your own masks as well. Very much usable right out of the box. And here's a couple more material options. And then facades. Like, this is very amazing. I always find this one really fun. You could basically take a box, use our facades to create buildings with windows and textures, especially if you're filling out backgrounds of cities, without a lot of work. So a lot of this is available already. And then here's some more examples of some of our parameters and the things that they can do. Obviously very dialable, very fun, very powerful. And things like window size, brace mount, window frame width, just some examples. Okay, and I'm going to leave this slide up for just a second so you can freeze on it, but we will add this to the comment section. We have a 1-month free trial available, free asset selection as well, and tutorials. We will definitely add these links for the webinar so that you have access to them. All right. And let's get started on a demo. All right, let's get started on an example of Sampler. So this is our interface for Sampler. It's very simple. We have a lot of initial materials here, some filters, a toolbox on the left, and then layers and properties. Let me show you how you can use this. So the way to start with Sampler is, the easiest way is to say, okay, I know what kind of material I'm going to make. So I already went through Adobe Stock. I found a really good image of this asphalt ground that I kind of want to use for the Enscape project. So I know that I want to make like a driveway, a gravel driveway. This may not be the right scale, but at least I want to get this feeling of rock and ground. So I'm going to just drop in an image like that. And we have different types of material creation options. We use AI to read an image and create the different data channels that you just learned about very quickly, very easily. Normally, you take an image and you have to image process it in order to create these images, usually in Photoshop, but Sampler has made it very, very easy. So I'm going to use our AI power, and you can see some of our other options on our YouTube channels as well. We have a lot of videos showing how it works. Very fun to play with. So now I'm just going to let the AI do its thing. And what it's going to do is it's going to read the Adobe Stock image, and make a tileable material. So you can see it did a really decent job. You can still see seams, but we'll fix that in a minute. So what it basically did is it started with right away with getting you this 3D material. And you can see here it created a base color, so your albedo, a normal map, um, roughness, which is how shiny or not, or soft, how it accepts light. Metallic, there's nothing metallic about this image. A height map, which you can also call your displacement map, and ambient occlusion, which kind of gives the read of like, okay, what are the near and far objects, and how dark should it be in between? What kind of shadowing does it have? Okay, and then you can see the scan, the original scan from this area. So what I usually do, I go to the base material and I kind of figure out what kind of base material it's going to be using. Usually I just leave it alone is fine because the AI does a good job of figuring out what it should be. Here from the rock, you can see it kind of knows what it's doing. I can look at how the pattern is tiling. And then usually the first way that I start is to add a filter layer. My favorite is to equalize. So once it adds a layer, it will go through and process the image, and you can see right away that it created some evenness across the entire tile. Now it looks a little bit more natural. It evened out the color, delit it a little bit, and then does a good job of evening out the other channels as well. So in height is where the main difference you will see. If I turn it off and then turn it back on, you can see it kind of really adjusts everything down and evens it out, which is really great. The other thing that I'm noticing is I can still see the tile a little bit, so I probably want to make that edge a little bit more irregular and uneven so that it kind of matches everything. So I can go in and go to tiling. So all of these different filters are basically just layers like you would do in Photoshop where you're adjusting levels, their image processing, but they're broken up into very common filters that allow you to very powerfully do very common tasks very fast. So if you start playing around with these, you'll find that you can quickly process an image like this, make it tileable, add things like clone stamp, add things like content aware fill, just like Photoshop, but do it across all data channels very fast. So what it allows you to do is it allows you to take an image, and within minutes you can get something really interesting looking. So with tiling, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a seam, and I'm going to go in and I just want the tile seam to be a little bit more uneven. So I'm going to adjust the threshold so that it starts breaking up how it's choosing a seam for the edges. And I don't want to break it up too much because then I start getting, some weird artifacts, but just enough. And you can see the seam here, it kind of pops everything out. It's going to break it up in an uneven natural pattern, so it might grab more of the rocks, mix them together in more way. You can also blur those edges so you can just get a little bit of softness between rocks because, it's probably not going to tile perfectly. I can also smooth out the edge as well if I feel like it's a little too jagged. But in this case, I probably want it a little bit jagged. I can also change the grid resolution. So if I want like bigger chunks, I can have it grab bigger chunks, or I can have it have finer detail that it's finding from within the image. So I think that that's really working really well. So now I'm going to turn off that seam, and now I have something that's a little bit better. And then there's other ways of hiding things, like you can add more let that we have available. Sometimes I like to add a dirt layer right on top. Let that cook. So then what that'll do is it'll mix in dirt into some of the lower lying areas, and then you can start making it feel like it is a little bit, softer and just a little bit more integrated together. So heavy dirt, light dirt, softer. And so what it's doing is it's kind of integrating everything together a little bit more. And then you can really start layering things together. So I'm going to add up the volume a little bit just to play around with it. Red blur. Okay. All right. So that's one way to go about it. So now I have this tileable gravel material. And the other thing that I'm also going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to mix in maybe another material into it. So what I like to do, and you have to think about sampler as kind of like a way of really making a custom material. So once you have a scan, you can use it as is, but you can also make something more custom. So I can start saying, okay, well, maybe I just want a little bit more asphalty feel. Maybe it's like an asphalt mix. So asphalt is its own material with its own gravel in it, and now you have the rocks peeking through. And then I can choose different presets to kind of choose what kind of asphalt it is. And then you can see that it's mixing everything together pretty cleanly. So here's some of the presets. I kind of chose one that looks interesting. It's very pebbly. I think I'm going to go with the smoother one. And then I'm going to drop the offset so that it picks up more of the gravel. So I just want it to blend everything together just a little bit more. And I want it to look a little bit natural. So like there it is. It's kind of feeling like now it's like a gravel mixed with asphalt. Um, and it's got a little bit more detail. And then I can also change the scale if I'm feeling like the scale of the asphalt is a little bit off from the gravel. But now you can see it's starting to really feel like it's a little bit baked in. We can also have the ability to add things like leaves. So you can scatter other materials on really fast. And this is just an example. I'm not going to leave this on here, but you can start grabbing other materials that we have, scatter them on in a different way. Maybe we want a single element. Maybe we want it to splatter. You have a splattering of different leaves mixed in. I know it doesn't make any sense for this application, but I just wanted to make sure you know that this application does this really well. So I'm going to delete that. And then we also have the capability of doing things like adding water. So we have a water filter as well. So if you want to make, like, for example, a wet cement, you're focused in it. Obviously, it's tileable, so you're going to have to figure out how to hide the seams once you are in 3D. But if you're doing something like a close-up, having a tileable water spot inside your gravelly asphalt is not a problem. So here I'm going to add this water. Maybe I want it to have a higher level. And you can see it's adding it to all of the channels, like in terms of what the roughness metallic is. But what I really want to do is I want to do a custom mask and paint it in. So we also have paintbrush tools that allows you to paint in, okay, this little area. But then, obviously if it tiles, you can see it made this water spot everywhere. But it's really nice, especially if you're doing like a close-up application of a material, you can start adding in little details like that, and then really get, a really good material that looks photorealistic just for your purposes. So that's that one. I'm going to export this and send this off. I'm probably going to turn off the water and then send this off to Josh. And we'll call this, let's rename it. We're going to just call this gravel mix. And now you can also, within the same application, start new materials and make them together. And I can also change the view. For example, like if I'm not happy with looking at just this box, I can also change the viewer to look at like a plane, a sphere, a piece of cloth, a t-shirt, a preview. So there's multiple different options as well. And we can also rotate lights to kind of really view our material as well. So now I'm going to show you how to make, for like another thing that we need for our project would be a tile. So the best way to approach something like a backsplash would be to actually get the physical material first. So whether this is a good concept even for 3D in general, is just whether it's a backsplash, a wood floor, it's better to start with the actual material itself, get those properties dialed in properly. So like, for example, I'm going to make a travertine type black splash. And I want to add this in. I'm going to start with just the material itself and then add in the tiling in the application like sampler afterwards. So let's drop this in and same And the reason I'm not just using the matte, because for this tile, I want it to look a little bit better, a little bit higher quality than just a plain tile that's glazed over, which of course you can use it for that property as well. But the nice thing about using image to material and getting detail is that you also get some of the surface unevenness that is natural to a material that really helps it look photorealistic in a 3D scene. Okay, here we go. All right, so you can see this is not exactly what I want. It's a very bumpy material, but that's okay because this is not what I'm going for. I am going to make this shinier. I am going to make this looking flatter. But what I really wanted to drive out of this was just this kind of material detail that you're getting out of it that you wouldn't get out of just using an image. Otherwise, just use the image. So in this case, it has a height map. It has ambient occlusion that I don't necessarily want. I'm going to turn off the ambient occlusion because I don't want it to create extra shadowing. For the height map, I want it to not do as much equalizing. So I'm going to turn off the geometry equalizer. And then now I just have the light detail to deal with. So for that, I can turn down medium details, and I always look at the height map for this, but maybe I want to keep some of it back. I don't know. Turn down some of the large details, micro details I want to soften by a lot. And now I have something smoother, but then I still have that roughness map, that's glorious roughness map. So I think that's ultimately what I'm trying to get out of it, is some of the finer details of the roughness map, so that it gets a little bit nicer. And it feels like, it feels like the actual tile, which has some surface variation and detail to it. So I can play with some of these settings. And then from here, I can also set the base roughness. So I really want a very shiny looking material. So there we go. So I'm going to turn down the roughness so it's much shinier looking. And you can see when you roll across the surface, you feel like you're getting a little bit more detail inside of it, which is great. So I'm going to turn this back up just a little bit. Okay, and obviously you can play around with this once you export it. There's nothing stopping you from getting back in here and exporting it again. So height, it's still going to be a little bit uneven. Probably want to take that down just so it's not super uneven. And yeah, best way to do this is to keep an eye on the data you're generating. Okay, so I feel like this is a nice smoother surface, and it's got the tile pattern in it, which is great. And now I'm going to go and add some tiling. So we have some really easy stuff. You can either use brick wall, which is specifically for brick walls, but I actually like to use floor tile for this purpose because it has some nice patterning options. So floor tile will already add a grout. It makes the grout by default metallic. It helps to see it at first, but I'm going to take that down in a second. So you can get a typical square tile just like this, and you can see it's already creating surface variation in between the tiles, which is great. Really helps with a lot of realism. I can turn down, right now it scales the material underneath it. So I'm going to turn that back down, so because I want like a larger scale. And then you can see what it's doing is it's actually randomizing the rotation. So if I didn't do this, it would be just adding this brick tile right on top. But what I want it to look like is, if you're naturally placing tile, they would automatically get rotated. So it would do the rotation for you, which is really awesome. And then pattern, like I don't necessarily want the square tiles. I think I'm going to go, in this case, I love basket tiles. Very in style right now. Doing it for my own kitchen. So I'm going to go up and change the tile amount. I'm going to work with a larger tile space so that I have more resolution. And more resolution means you won't get some jaggy edges like this, which we'll clean up in a second. So now if I'm watching the other channels, you can see it created a normal map. It's a little bit, got some surface variation in it. If I increase the tile amount, I can really kind of get an idea of what that surface variation is. And you can see in the roughness, it's making those areas shiny. That has to do with the gap. So that gap is set to metallic automatically. I'm going to turn that down. So now roughness is wider. And then in terms of color, I want to change the color something closer to here. So let's change the grout to use our color picker, maybe something more gray. And you can pick something from our color palette here, which uses Pantone colors, which can really match the look and feel of your project as you want. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a thin bevel and check out my pattern here. I'm still getting some, the thing that's making this also really nice is the fact that it's adding a bit of age. So when it says floor tilt, what it's doing, then you can see it's like really adding some uneven surface variations within each of the tiles, raising some edges, dropping some edges. So you start really getting that feel of like an unevenly laid brick pattern, which is really nice. But I'm going to keep it down and clean for this purpose. You can also turn dirt up and down. So dirt is really nice because what it does is it softens the edges. And I know it's meant to make it feel like it has grime, but even just a little bit, a hint of it, even if it's not a lot, is enough to sell it with realism, because then now you start really feeling those indentations and the grout a little bit more, and it starts feeling more like grout. I can also change the height of the of where how deep these grooves are going. I'm probably going to leave it at 0.5. I'm going to leave the width as is. I'm going to increase the tile amount a little bit more, maybe at a 2, and that feels good to me. And then from there, you can export it. And you can also reduce the normal intensity. So like if it's just feeling like it's just too much, it probably is. So you can always reduce the normal intensity here, or also control this data in your render. So within Enscape, Josh will be able to show you how he controls that there. So now we are going to export it. So now I have 2 materials in this project. One called, let's call it something good. Backsplash tile. I'm so clever. All right, back to you, Josh. And from here, Josh will show you how to export for Enscape, particularly from Sampler, and we are ready to go.
Cool. Thank you, Dee. Really, really cool. Yeah, thank you so much for showing that. All right. Well, thank you, Dee. Really, really cool. Yeah, really loved how you put that all together. And yeah, really appreciate you showing us like all the steps you went through to create that. So I have those materials pulled up here. So like we saw with what she was doing, I still have access to all the different parameters that she created and put in there, so I can go through and edit it if I need to. But I really like what she did. So now to get these out of Sampler and into Enscape, what we're going to do is go to this share button, and I can hit export as. And now what we can do is you can name it where you would like, set the destination path, and you can set the file format that you would like as well. I'm just going to do JPEGs. And then under the presets, there's this really cool one. It's called Enscape. So with that, what you can do is just obviously select Enscape, and then you get the different channels for the different material maps that we can use for Enscape. So for these 2 materials, we don't have a transparency layer on there, but if you use Sampler and you create a material that has transparency, you can definitely check the transparency layer. And this one didn't have a metallic one in it, so we're just going to take the normal roughness, albedo, bump, and displacement. And all you got to do is click export. Already went ahead and exported these. And then same with the tile material, or with the backsplash material. So I went ahead and exported these as well. So here's the material that she created. And again, same thing, just click export, get the different material maps that you would like. These were already ready for Enscape. So again, here's the different material maps that I exported. All right, now let's see what these are going to look like inside of Enscape. So here I have my Enscape scene. So we'll start with the pavement material. So for this, what we're going to utilize is the Enscape material editor. This is where you can use these. Right now I'm using Revit, but for the different design applications that we support, Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, ArchiCAD, and Vectorworks, this would be the exact same thing for all those different design applications. So our Enscape material editor is going to be the little checkered ball. This is where it's going to show me all the different materials I already have inside my project. So for my pavement, what I'm going to want to do is remove this one that's already applied to it. And we can see here, I have my section for albedo map. So what I'm going to do is just navigate over and find my albedo map. So we can go to materials. Here's my gravel, and see it already puts an underscore what, and then dash what that, or underscore what that material is. So I'm going to take the gravel asphalt albedo, load that in there. And with Enscape being a real-time rendering engine, we can see exactly whatever changes I'm making in the design application or inside this Enscape material. We're going to see those changes update immediately for us here. And then for the height map, this is where we can show what these different material maps are. So traditionally, we'd take the bump map and the albedo map or the diffuse map, and that's pretty much where the end of those material maps would be. So this is, for this material, this is pretty much what we would get for our final result, which doesn't look bad, but if we want to push our renderings to the next level here, this is where we'll use these different material maps. So to show you what the difference is with the normal map as well. So I can go in here and load in the normal map. And then Enscape will automatically detect that it's a normal map and see, so with the normal map, it gives it that nice 3D look. I can even adjust the intensity of that as well too. And when I'm controlling the time of day, I can see the different shadows. So we can start to see a little bit here. But if I want to take this to the next level a little bit, so what we're going to do is load in the displacement map. And it's going to make it really big at first, but we can sit there and adjust that. So I'm going to click the drop down for bump and click the drop down for displacement map. See, it made it really, really big. So what I can do is toggle that down to 0.5 to start. So here, toggle that to 0.5. And now we can start to see here in the shadows, when I change the time of the day, we can really get a nice representation of what this is going to look like. See, we're getting all this nice variation in the details and such. I can interactively adjust this too, depending on how much I want that to be. But this is where the real power of using these materials comes in, is being able to see these differences right here. And the last map that we'll add in is that roughness map. So I'll just click where it says reflections and click for the roughness map. So I'll click open, and then we can see here too. So this material is not really super, super shiny, but we'll still be able to see wherever the difference is in reflection values as well. So again, here too, we can see wherever's darker is going to be more shiny and reflective. Wherever is lighter towards the white area is going to be dull. And where this really comes in is, when we change the time of day, we can see interactively how these materials are accurately responding to light. So I don't have to sit here and create different materials for different lighting conditions. I can just create one set of materials and they will accurately respond to light and really help add a little bit more realism to the scene, because again, this is just a flat texture, but it's actually giving the appearance of actual like 3D geometry here. So now let's try out that other material that Aditi created. So we'll fly inside of my model here and we'll go, I have a kitchen, so we'll add in this to the backsplash here. So I'll go up to my backsplash material here. So here for backsplash, and again, I'm just going to load in those different material maps. So for the albedo map, here we go. We'll load in the albedo map so we can see what this is going to do here. So again, looks nice. Again, traditionally, we'd only get the albedo map and then maybe a bump map. So we'll see what those ones look like. So here's the bump map. So again, this looks pretty good, still looking good. But we want this to be more realistic here. So what I can do is for this one, I'm going to utilize a normal map. And I'll put the normal map on there so we can start to see what that's doing. It's going to give me some nice depth to it. And then we can switch that to a displacement map, and I will load in my displacement map. Here we go. So we'll load in the displacement map. Here we go. And we'll start to see the nice detail. Oh, and we can back that down. So we'll say, again, we'll put that at like a 0.5. Yep. So we can really get we can really see those lines and everything. But so again, this is pretty much as far as traditionally it would go with these two material maps. But where the real details come in is the roughness map. So we're going to see here. There we go. So now we're getting some really nice detail inside of here. So when we're changing the time of day and checking out our material from all different angles, we can see what that is actually doing as well. So it's really giving us that nice look that we're going for here. And then when we change the time of the day, we can see exactly what those are doing there. So that's how we can quickly get those materials out of Sampler and inside of Enscape here and really help add a little bit more realism to our renderings. But let's say we want to just utilize some custom ones that we found online, or we were browsing the internet and we found some that already have PBR material set up in there. What we can do is, like Aditi was talking about, there's the Substance asset library. So what we're going to do is we can go to, again, here's thousands and thousands of these different assets inside of here. We'll look at the free ones for today. So what we can do here is scroll down and we'll pick, I'm going to make this random rubble here. So what I can do, I can click on this one and I can see the different presets that come with this one here. And I'm going to download the SPSAR file, the substar file. So I already went ahead and pre-downloaded that. And then I'm going to take another one. Let's do a marble here. So let's scroll down here and pick out which one I want. Let's see here. So let's do this Skyros marble here. So again, I can click on this. I can see some of the different presets that come with this one. And I'm just going to click download. And then from here, I pop back over to Sampler. And this is where I can, again, I'm going to create a new material. And then let's start with my random rubble here. So this is where I can throw that on there and I can see exactly how this is going to look, looking really nice right away. And again, where the real power of these being parametric is I can control the different parameters about this as well too, like the height range. I can control the colors and see the different ones that come with this pre-built material, again, from this asset library here. And all I gotta do is click export. And again, go to my preset for Revit or for Enscape and just click the different material maps that I would like. And then same with my marble tile. Just put that material on there, see what that's going to look like, and get a good idea of what that's going to look like too. And again, same step, just click the export option, pick the different material maps that I would like. And also I get some really nice options in here to see what some different ones look like. So this is the more, this one's got some more bumps patterns to it. This one's got some really nice attributes to it, some features. I like this one. And we can have a lot of control over this. So we can control the different colors of the vines. We can control the roughness as well. We can even start mixing and matching too, like we saw Aditi do, where we can sit there and combine different materials. Like if I wanted to combine this with her backsplash material, we could definitely do that as well too. And start controlling the different ones as well. But I really like what she did, so I don't want to mess with that at all. And then I like the other one that looked like that. So let's pop over and start applying this. So let's say for my kitchen countertop, here we go. Scroll down to my, I'll do my countertop right here. So again, this is where I will add in the albedo map. So we can see what this is doing here. And even I'm going to have I'm going to have this on my little island here. And then for the height map, I'm going to use a normal map for this one. So let's go in here and take my marble. So again, looking pretty good, but where the real detail comes in is being able to utilize this roughness map here. So this is where we're going to get all those really nice surface imperfections, and we can see in here too, when I rotate around, we can see all the nice details that I'm subtly getting in here that I wouldn't normally get without this material inside of here. Oh yeah, we can even see in here too the different vines. So when I rotate around, all the different details that we're getting in there are really going to help add more realism to our materials and to our renderings. We can even see inside of here too what this is doing, where we rotate around and see those nice subtle details inside of there. And again, we can even set up a quick rendering here, highlighting some of these nice details inside of here. So let's go right here where we can get some really nice details. So inside of Enscape, I'm just going to set up a quick rendering. So a couple of things that I'll do is I'll change the field of view down to about 60 degrees, and then change the depth of field a little bit, and then I'll be able to control the focal point. So I can really see, just get like a nice more photography look to it. I can control the depth of field a little bit too here, kind of toggle that down a little bit, position my camera how I want. And the great thing with Enscape is it's being a real-time rendering engine. So again, renderings are going to be really fast for me. So yeah, let's do something like that. And all I got to do is hit take screenshot, tell it where I want it to save to, and from here, this is going to produce a nice rendering for me. So I can see, create rapid iterations of this. And again, with it being a real-time rendering engine, pretty much what you see inside the Enscape window is what you should get for your final rendering. So again, this is where we're getting those real nice details inside of there. All right, but let's check out that rubble wall that we got. So let's jump over inside of here. I'll add that same material to both countertops. So let's go to kitchen wall here. And again, I'll load in my different material maps. So we'll go to Substance Webinar. Here we go. And here's the albedo map. So it's looking pretty nice. Here, I'll turn the autofocus back off here. There we go. Perfect. And then again, for the bump map, I'll load in the displacement map. Well, actually, let's load in the normal map or the bump map to start to see what that would look like. So again, with the bump map, that looks pretty good as is. And then with the roughness map, we'll also load that in there. So we can see what this is doing. Like, this looks pretty good straight on, but if we want to make this look better, again, we can try and see what the normal map will look like. So here's the normal map. So again, this looks pretty good. But then, when we go at an angle, it kind of loses that 3D look to it. That's not what we want. We want this to be, photorealistic. So again, when I'm looking straight on at the normal map, looks great. But again, when we go to that angle, this is where that displacement map would come in, because I actually want to see some geometry being displaced here. So I'll utilize our displacement map. And now this is where the real power of it comes in. So we'll click the drop down for the bump map and tell it to become a displacement map. Now we can see like the real power of this displacement map here. And I can control how recessed that is just by interactively sliding my amount slider here left and right. So I can get a really nice shot on how I want that to look. And then I can control the Enscape clouds to see exactly, get a nice view on. So now I can see when I change the time of the day here, it's really respecting the light. So I can see get some nice shadows inside of here. Let's load in that other marble. Let's load in that marble tile here so we can get a really nice shot here. There we go. So there's the albedo map. And then we'll utilize our normal map here. And then for the roughness map, again, we'll load in what we call our roughness map here again. So we can get those really nice details inside of there. So now with that, we just saw that too. Without that map in there, I'm not really getting any good reflections. There we go. Load it back in there. There we go. Perfect. So now when I adjust the time of the day here, I'm going to get some really nice details inside of here as well. So I can change the time of the day a little bit, and I can rotate the sun into position a little bit. There we go. Now we're getting some nice details, and we can really see how those details are being enhanced right there now too. And again, I'll just utilize a little bit of the visual settings tab here to really kind of dial in a little bit. Look, we have some different saturation, contrast type things. If it's a little too saturated, we can definitely turn that down. Same with the color temperature. We can really set that mood that we're looking for our final renderings. And then again, for the depth of field, I'll just adjust that and then dial up that focal point a little bit to the point that I want. Maybe turn that down a little bit too much. There we go. I'll adjust the lighting a little bit too, get that nice shot I'm looking for. But notice how we can really see how these materials are really interacting with the light in every different lighting condition. Even when I go to nighttime mode, we'll see, again, our materials are going to look good in any lighting condition here. So here's nighttime mode. So again, really getting a nice nighttime look for our materials. And again, I'll go back to where we're getting some nice reflections inside of here. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Right there. Yeah, I like that shot right there. Getting some nice subtle details inside of there as well. There we go. Cool. Yeah, that one right there. And again, all I gotta do is hit render, and I can set the output size if I want. If I can do Ultra HD, or I can even go higher if I would like. So again, just hit render. So I want it to go to. Then again, it's gonna be really fast to render, so we can get a nice idea of how that's gonna look. There we go. There was that one. And there's our final rendering. So that's how we can get those material maps out of Sampler and then inside of Enscape, and really help those and really use those to our advantage to really help add more realism to the scene. And as a cool thank you for joining our webinar today. What we're going to be able to do is we're going to be giving away these materials that we showed that we've created today. And these will actually be Enscape materials. So what you can do, Enscape and Substance materials. So what you can do is in the Enscape material editor, you can go to export, and you can actually export this as an Enscape material. Now what you're going to do is when you get the files, go inside of your Enscape material editor, click the 3 little lines and hit batch import. What these are going to do is these are actually going to import these into your host design application and create that host design application's materials. And these will automatically show up inside the material editor. You'll get all the different parameters that we have set up already as well. So that's a cool little takeaway as a thank you for joining our webinar. And with that, I'd like to say thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. Aditi, thank you so much for joining us today. Really amazing stuff. Can't thank you enough for showing us all this cool technology.
Thanks so much, Josh. Thanks, everyone. Hope you get a lot out of the webinar, and feel free to look up everything, and we'll provide you all the resources in our links. Thank you.
Yep. Enjoy, everybody. Bye.